Hello there, welcome to Cansanity. It's clouding up outside right now, so I thought I would come in and make some tortillas. Now, I know that most of us usually go out and just pick up the tortillas from the grocery store because it's really convenient and they're very inexpensive to pick up. But given the fact that we're all doing our physical distancing and trying to stay out of the stores as much as possible, I thought it would be a good time to show you how to make tortillas because they're really easy to make and they come together really quickly. So I've already started and I've added 2.5 cups of flour to this bowl, and I've also added a teaspoon of baking powder and 1/2 teaspoon of table salt, and I've mixed that up. Then you're going to add your fat. So I like to use lard, and so to this bowl you're going to add 1/4 cup of lard. Now, if you don't want to use lard, that's okay. You can use butter or shortening or even cooking oil. So once that's added, then what you're going to do is you're going to cut the fat into the flour mixture. And now I have a pastry cutter, so I'm going to use that. But if you don't have a pastry cutter, you can always just use 2 knives and just cut it that way. And cut the fat into the mixture that way. But it's quicker for me to use a pastry cutter, so I'm just going to do that. So you want to cut the fat into the flour mixture until you have clumps that are about the size of a small pea. And you don't want to cut it any finer than that, because you do want the clumps of fat in there will help the tortilla rise when you go to cook it in your pan. So that's all cut up nice. And so now what you're going to add to that is a whole cup of hot water. Now, normally you probably add to your baking ingredients cool water, but in this case you're adding hot water. So I add most of the water, and then I give it a stir. And the reason being is that, you know, the amount of liquid that you're going to add to the tortillas will depend on the humidity in your house and how dry your flour actually is. So you might not need to use a whole cup. So just add a cup until you get it to looking kind of like that, kind of a little bit shaggy looking. And then it seems a bit dry, so I'm going to add a little bit more water. And if it needs then more flour, if I've over added, then I can always just add some more flour. But I'm just going to add a little bit more water because it looks like I want it to be a soft dough. And so that's looking perfect now, and the flour started to absorb the water. So then you're going to take that and just dump that onto your cutting board or onto your counter. I happen to have a pastry board, so I use that. And you're just going to then just knead it a little bit. Not like you would a dough for bread. You're going to just knead it so that it comes together into your dough ball. And you'll see that it's a very soft dough, and that's what you want. So then you're going to divide it into 8 portions so that you'll get 8 tortillas. So what I do is I usually just form a little rectangle, and then of uniform height, and then I take a knife and I cut that rectangle in half first, and then I cut those halves, and then I cut those into quarters. And there you have quickly have your 8 tortilla dough balls. So then you're just going to take your some flour and just make it into a little dough ball. And then you're going to flatten it a little bit and then put it on a tray. Now I like to use parchment paper lined trays, then they just don't stick. So I just do that. And you know, you don't have to be too concerned about it. It's not the perfect circle. Like, this is homemade. You want it to be rustic, somewhat rustic. And so just get those onto your parchment paper. And then once those are on there, and you're going to roll this, remember, so again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Then you are going to just brush these dough balls with a little bit of oil, and that's so that the oil, or so that the dough doesn't dry out too much. So then you'll just brush a little bit of oil on it. It's not necessary, but if you do that, then your dough ball won't dry out. So normally I would do all of them, and then I would cover it with a tea towel so that it doesn't dry out. So I've already done that here. And so I'm just going to show you then what you do is you just take a little bit more flour on your counter so your tortilla doesn't stick. And then you're going to take one of your dough balls, flatten it out a little bit. And then you're going to take your rolling pin. If you don't have a rolling pin, you could just use a bottle of some sort just to roll it out, or you could just use your hands. But rolling pin is ideal if you have it. And then you're just going to roll it to about a 1/4 inch thick. So it's about 8 inches in diameter. And then you're going to take that and you're just going to put it onto a hot preheated skillet like what I have here. I've preheated that to 400 degrees. And then you're going to cook it for 30 seconds each side. And then once it's cooked, then you're going to put it into a tortilla container. If you have that, that's ideal because it helps keep the moisture in the tortilla. If you don't have one of those, then all you have to do is wrap them up in a tea towel, and that will help keep the moisture in the tortilla. So as you can see, it's bubbling nicely, and then you're going to flip that after 30 seconds. And once they've cooked a full minute, they're going to look like this and have a little bit of brown edges. And there you go, you have your tortilla. Now, I have my tortilla containers, so we're going to have definitely some nice black bean quesadillas with these tonight. And but the rest of these tortillas, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cool them completely, and then I'm going to put them in a bag and save them for a rainy day, or a sunny day in my case, because on sunny days I'm out in my garden and I don't want to be inside cooking. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Have a great day.